They looked like the couple who had it all: fame, beauty, and a love story straight out of a movie. Nicole Kidman, the Hollywood icon. Keith Urban, the country music rebel who finally found peace in her arms. But behind the red carpets and love songs, there was a truth too raw for headlines. Because not every fairy tale ends with betrayal. Some end with silence, and some end with evolution. This is the real story of Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman. A story not of scandal, but of survival. Of a man who lost everything, found love, then lost that too, only to discover that peace was waiting in the quiet. When Keith met Nicole, he was broken, a man hiding pain behind stadium lights. But she saw something the world didn't, the tenderness buried beneath the chaos. He would later say, "She made me believe that home wasn't a place, it was a person. They fell fast, they fell deep, and for a while it was pure magic." Two people from opposite worlds, the Australian cowboy and the Hollywood queen, found harmony in each other's silence. Their wedding in Sydney felt like a cinematic ending, but in truth, it was just the beginning of their hardest chapter. Because only 4 months later, the fairy tale cracked. Headlines exploded across the world. Keith Urban enters rehab. The same man who sang about love and healing was suddenly fighting for his life. Fans were stunned. The media circled, but Nicole didn't leave. She didn't speak. She just packed her bags and went to him. When asked later why she stayed, she said 6 words that silenced every critic: because love doesn't run from pain. Those words became the heartbeat of their marriage. While others speculated, she sat by his side, reminding him that healing isn't weakness, it's courage. Rehab wasn't Keith's downfall, it was his rebirth. Inside those walls, stripped of fame and applause, he faced the one thing he'd avoided for years: himself. He once admitted, "I wasn't addicted to alcohol. I was addicted to escaping." But this time he didn't run. When he finally walked out, sober, humbled, free, he didn't go back to chasing hits. He went back to chasing peace. His next albums, Defying Gravity, Get Closer, were love letters to Nicole. Songs like Thank You and Sweet Thing weren't just romantic, they were confessions. Every lyric carried the weight of a man who had fallen, been forgiven, and found grace in the arms of someone who refused to give up on him. The world could feel the change. Gone was the swagger of a star trying to impress. In its place was a man who finally understood that true success wasn't applause, it was peace. For years, it seemed like the happy ending had arrived. They built a quiet life in Nashville. Mornings filled with music, daughters' laughter echoing through the halls, and late nights on the porch watching the sunset. Keith once said, "Home isn't walls, it's the sound of her laughter." And for a while, that was enough. But even the strongest love can outpace fame. As Keith's career reignited, the tours grew longer, the stages brighter. Nicole's career soared too, with award-winning performances across continents. They were still in love, just rarely in the same room. Phone calls replaced conversations. Airport goodbyes became routine. And slowly, the warmth that once came so easily started to fade. There was no fight, no betrayal, just two people slowly drifting apart under the weight of the lives they'd built. Their love hadn't died, it had evolved. In a rare interview, Keith said, "Love doesn't always end. Sometimes it changes shape." And that's what theirs did. They stayed kind. They stayed in touch. They even shared family holidays, but the rhythm had changed. Nicole channeled her emotions into her art. Her performance in Big Little Lies was hauntingly real, layered with the ache of someone who knew what it meant to love deeply, yet lose quietly. Keith poured his truth into stripped-down songs, raw, acoustic, vulnerable. He didn't write to impress anymore. He wrote to survive. Then came a night that changed everything. It wasn't a headline. It wasn't an interview. It was an acoustic concert in Nashville, small, intimate, and unplanned. Keith paused mid-song and said quietly into the microphone, "People keep asking what happened. The truth is simple. It wasn't infidelity. It was evolution." The crowd went silent. He continued, "We didn't fall out of love. We just grew in different directions. Love doesn't die. It transforms." For the first time, he spoke not as a celebrity, but as a man finally at peace. He admitted that for years, he'd been addicted not just to substances, but to perfection, applause, control. When you're young, he said, you think success will fix everything. It doesn't. It just makes your fears louder. That night, there were no pyrotechnics, no spotlight moments, just truth. He ended the set with a line that broke hearts and healed them all at once. I used to think love was holding on. Now I know it's letting go. Years later, as his final tour came to an end, Keith walked on the stage one last time. No fireworks, no dancers, no lights. Just him, a guitar, and a song no one had ever heard. He called it Still Here. The lyrics were simple. If the world forgets my name or my song, I'll still be here, where I've belonged all along. The crowd didn't cheer. They just listened, completely still. It wasn't a concert. It was closure. When the final chord faded, Keith smiled, small, peaceful, real, and walked off stage. No curtain call, no encore, just silence. He didn't lose Nicole. He found himself. And maybe that's what love was always meant to do. Not save us, but teach us how to save ourselves. Because not every story ends in heartbreak. Some end in peace. And somewhere in Nashville tonight, Keith Urban is still playing. Quietly, beautifully, still here. If you believe that love doesn't have to end to change, that peace can be its own kind of forever, make sure you subscribe. Because there are still more stories to tell and more songs waiting to be heard.